changes to the CSP examination that's going to take effect in August. And for those that, are not up to date, the CSP currently needs 107 out of the 175 questions. 25 of the questions are practice questions. They don't count. The practice questions often give us indicators of what's coming downstream, as you'll see. Again, we don't use the actual questions. We agreed to rewrite the questions covering the concepts of that question, but they are not the actual questions. That's part of the deal that we've made with BCSP and ASSP and everything else. So let's get into it. 9 domains go down to 6. The trial questions or practice questions will tell us what we're seeing, and that's what we're catching some of the new stuff that's coming out. Every May they sit down with a bunch of CSPs and they go over what they want to do for the next 12 months, and this is one of the changes they've made. It's going from knowledge-based to skill-based. Much more performance scenario questions instead of you having to repeat a number. So for those that remember a lot of numbers, that's going to be a little bit less on the test. And for a lot of people, law and ethics got eliminated. And I got confirmation from the BCSP this week. They took out the ethic questions. So a lot of people said that's the 5 easiest questions that you're going to get. So when I say it might be harder, you're going to get one of these 40 questions as a replacement for your 5 ethics questions. So for those that have decided whether you're going to take it before or after August 1st, I would definitely take it beforehand, because it's not going to be easier. It's going to be harder test. And if we go back up here, if they have a lot of people fail, over 50%, they might lower the score. But that doesn't help you. Again, there's going to be 40 questions. I'll read them because a lot of people use this as a podcast. And you get to put in the chat what you think the answer is. They took out algebra and geometry. No more a squared plus b squared. I think the Pythagorean theorem will be in there. You still have to know the volume of the cylinder. Geez, that's been up to 3, 4, 5 questions on some of these tests. Environmental, they removed the reach in the rows, as I call it. Foreign object material was taken out. That was one of the advanced topics. You didn't have to know all the legal terminology, what kind of torts they are, and all the different things of negligence and liability, and that's good, because that's really law. Worker compensation. There may not be anything on EMR or anything as far as what the rights of the worker is. What's happening is the test is going global. They're starting to get rid of the questions that are just U.S. based. So that's one of the things I see. They're looking at what you have to know about preventing the accident that causes worker comp or the injury. The standards development process for ANSI, NFPA, OSHA, you don't have to know that anymore. And then they're going to talk about the interaction of hazard materials in the soil environment, which was not even one question on a test for most people. So they took that out. So we're going to do volume of the cylinder. Let's get the math question out of the way. You're going to use the formula height times pi times the radius times the radius. And again, pi is 3.14. People ask, do you get that cylinder question? I'm telling you, 50% of the time, you do not get that formula. You have to remember that formula. So I always remember the area of a circle is pi r squared times the height is the volume. So the tank is 16 meters high, 5-meter radius. Let's type in chat what you think the volume in cubic meters is. And I'll do it with my calculator. And if, again, I did the 10 common CSP questions, those haven't changed. All right, very good. Everybody did get the answer, was B. 16 times pi, which is 3.14 times 5 times 5 is 1,256 cubic meters. So I put it by the domain. All these questions kind of go in domain order, and what we think is going to be the common questions and well as the changes. Concrete silica was not mentioned per se. It's in silica's in the old domain, but we're getting a lot of questions on the trial questions, I think, on silica. So during a renovation project, workers are using a powered cutting saw to cut concrete indoors, like the photo shows. Fine dust is visible in the air. A new safety manager walks by and stops the work, stating it violates the silica standard. What is the most appropriate control the crew should implement to resume work safely? A. Use a saw equipped with integrated water delivery system to suppress dust. B. Require workers to double layer their dust masks. C. Increase ventilation by opening the doors and windows. D. Allow the dust to settle naturally, then resume cutting. You're right, it is A. Use a saw, and this is an example of a photo of integrated saw. It's either going to be vacuum or water in all your silica controls. Number 3, manufacturing, they're going to have, the title is going to be implementation of safety training, which is more, to me, it should have been in the training section, but they're looking at more of a, how you're going to implement it, which is more of a advanced safety application. Manufacturing company updated its lockout procedures. The safety officer schedules training session for all affected employees. During the session, several workers appear to be disengaged, like in the photo. People play on their phone a lot. One fails the post-training quiz. What should the safety officer do to improve the training effectiveness? I see this a lot. A. Shorten future sessions to avoid overloading workers with information. B. Include hands-on demonstration and interactive elements in the next session. C. Only train supervisors and assuming they'll pass on the information. D. Rely on the posters in the break room to reinforce the information. As Cameron Zamos said, 2 good questions for answers, 2 bad answers. So you're going to have to make a choice. And everybody did correct. It is B, hands-on demonstration. So this was last week. I have the workers go out and we actually lock out. I don't talk about it. We actually go and lock out the equipment. And this is what you want to do in your training session if you have that ability. Again, the same type. The new employee is injured while using a powered industrial truck. In this case, he went too fast, flipped it over, and got hurt. During the investigation, they signed a training attendance sheet but cannot explain safe operation procedures. What does this indicate? A, the employee ignored the training and should be disciplined. B, the training program needs to include more videos and handouts. C, the training program failed to verify understanding and competency. D, refresher training should only be offered annually, so no change is needed. And it is C. The training program failed to verify understanding and competency. For example, if you're going to teach forklift, you cannot do just online. You have to put them through a practical test. This is me driving backwards with my forklift and my load, which I would never put drums on top of each other. I would always wrap any kind of load, but this is the test that I had to take. But that's what you have to make sure. You're going to watch that person, verify that they understand it, and know how to drive it safely. Prevention through design is going to be in a fairly new category, and now it's emphasized by name, which means you're probably going to get 3, 4, 5 questions on it. So during the design of a chemical transfer station, the team considers routing the overhead piping above the walking paths. Forklift exposure is considered an issue. A safety professional suggests placing the piping underground. This recommendation reflects which prevention through design hierarchy principle. So this is kind of combining the hierarchy of controls, which there are 6 levels. You have to pick which one we're using. A, substitution. B, elimination. C, administrative controls. D, personal protective equipment. This is tough. You know it's not PPE. This one is elimination, because we're going to eliminate that ability of that forklift to hit those pipes, which happens all the time in chemical plants. It sounds so easy to put the pipe underground, but that is often very, very difficult if you don't plan for it. Public space safety. This is a new area that they're going into, and I just call it life safety. They kind of revised this issue because the emphasis on fire was all the things from combustion to detonation to fire triangle. They wanted to have something more about the life safety of the buildings. So a new auditorium is being constructed to host community events. During a safety review, it's noted that there was only one exit door located at the rear. Which life safety concerns should the safety professional raise? So this is an example of the safety exit door at the end of the auditorium. A, the single exit may not be large enough for the equipment movement. B, the exit sign needs to be upgraded to LED. It's supposed to be lit. C, multiple exits are required to ensure safe occupant egress during emergencies. D, the exit door should remain open during all events. Well, everybody seemed to got that one very easily. It is C. Multiple exits are required. We had the Iroquois Theater kill 600 people in 1905 with locked exits. We have to have the ability to get out. If it's less than 50, the life safety code is not really worried. But if you have 200, 300, 400 people, people can stampede and cause a lot of issues with just one exit. The use of drone in material handling is new. And there's only been one trial question on drones, so but it gives us an indication. During an aerial inventory scan, a drone loses GPS signal and nearly crashes into a worker. What should the safety team implement to reduce further risks? A, prohibit all drones from indoor use permanently. B, provide workers with handheld jammers to block the drone signals. C, establish a no-entry zone for personnel during drone operation and require return-to-home programming. D, let the workers choose their own PPE while drones are operating. Very good. You don't want drones flying over your head at work if it's possible. Return to home programming means if it loses signals, it goes back home. It doesn't try to complete the mission anymore. This is a real example. Use of drones in material handling. A construction site uses drones to lift lightweight tools to elevated platforms. A safety manager observes drones being manually piloted over congested walkways. What is the safest alternative? In this photo, you don't see the congested walkway, but they're going to deliver tools instead of climbing up 5 stories on stairs. It's a lot faster to send the drone up there with a couple, tools and equipment. A, restrict the drone use to designated takeoff landing zones away from foot traffic. B, increase the drone speed to minimize time spent over the walkways. C, only flying drones during lunch break when most workers are seated. D, equip the drone with louder buzzers to alert nearby pedestrians. That's only really one answer, and you got it, which is A. Restricted drone to designated takeoff landing zones away from foot traffic. Expanded fleet safety tech. This is a lot of times more in the ASP, but not going to be a little bit more in the CSP. Again, we did a module on that before. A company recently upgraded its fleet vehicles with advanced telematics, including GPS tracking, driver behavior monitoring, speeding, harsh braking, and fatigue detection systems. 1 month into implementation, safety data shows that multiple drivers triggered fatigue alerts, but no changes were made to their driving schedules. What's the most appropriate safety action to take next? A, disable the fatigue monitoring system to avoid unnecessary data alarms. B, review and adjust the driving schedules to align with fatigue alerts and provide rest periods. C, assume the system is malfunctioning unless an accident occurs. D, send a memo reminding drivers to drink more coffee and stay alert. Very good. And again, one of the things that, if you really get stuck on these word questions, 50% of the time, the longest answer will be correct in a long worded question. So again, this is what we see in the companies like JB Hunt. They realize that the driver might be crossing a line, braking harshly, and starts to say, maybe take a break. Pull off, take a break as soon as you can. Review adjusted driving schedules to align. The answer is B. Process safety management is slowly getting more and more, since a lot of people taking the CSP are working in the chemical industry. But they had an interesting topic added, chemical compatibility under PSM versus maybe chemistry. So let's put it in a PSM context. A facility stores nitric acid in a steel drum. Usually it's not a steel drum, it's a plastic drum. Near a pallet of organic solvent containers, like the blue container in the back. During the routine inspection, a safety professional raises a concern. What's the most appropriate reason for concern? Nitric acid evaporates faster than most organics. The steel drum may corrode over time. C, nitric acid can violently react with organics, creating a toxic or explosive gas. D, organic solvents lose their potency when stored near acid. And again, very good. It is C. Nitric acids violently act with organics and create toxic or explosive gases. Culture measurement. This in culture is going to be a big question. I expect probably 3 to 5 questions on culture and measuring culture and handling culture. So let's take a look. Company performs annual safety climate surveys. That means the survey that you give to the employees and the managers, and receives high score. Yet the incident rates, like on the right, are steadily increasing over the past 6 months. What should the safety professional do next? A, disregard the survey data since incidents are rising. B, use the survey results alone to promote the EHS program. C, combine survey data with leading and lagging indicators to identify cultural gaps. D, assume the increase in incidents is seasonal and temporary. Okay, and it is C. Combine the survey data with leading and lagging indicators. Part of the leading indicators is doing site audits. So this was this week. I'm out there doing the audit on an excavation, and the boss of the company is not wearing a hard hat. He's got his vests on, and I was asking him, why aren't you wearing? Oh, it's too hot. Then the number 2 most cited item by OSHA in an excavation inspection is a lack of a hard hat, and you're not leading by examples. And you think you got a company of 80 people, you have to lead, so but him and his engineer were out there in the trench, and they're trying to get this trench drained of water, and they're not wearing the right PPE. So this is part of their issues, is slowly trying to get the culture to change. And you don't embarrass the boss and stuff, but you need to talk to him. He has to set the example, because how do you expect anybody else to follow the rules when you don't even follow your own rule? I mean, it's not a rule that he didn't make. It is a rule he makes, and he expects the workers to wear it, then he has to wear it. So this is going to take a year or 2 or maybe 3 to change this culture, that he's got to be thinking about safety since he's going to be out on the sites. Another question. After several near misses, a supervisor begins coaching staff on safety behaviors during the daily huddles. I love the daily morning huddle instruction. We talk about what we're going to do. We do a mini hazard identification of the tasks we have to go through, or a job hazard analysis. Which method would be best to help measure the impact of this coaching on EHS culture? A, record how often the supervisor holds the meeting. B, track the number of toolbox talks delivered. C, monitor the employee's safety observation and participation in the hazard reporting. D, count how many workers show up for the shift start. 3 good answers, 1 is the best, and you picked it. It is correct. C, monitor employees' safety observation and participation in hazard reporting. Another one with EHS, and the reason I'm putting it is because this is going to be a dominant section in the test. Company wants to benchmark its EHS cultures across multiple sites. Which approach will provide the most useful and actionable data? A, use anonymous employee interviews only at headquarters. B, rely on total recordable incident rates. C, conduct standardized culture assessment and compare behavior data across sites. D, review written safety policies for each location. Now, the National Safety Council, when they come in and they charge like $10,000, they're going to give 78 questions to everybody in the facility. But you can make your own. I would say, if it's 20 questions, that's fine. But I always ask these questions. Is safety and health part of the job, integral part of our job? Teamwork's apparent. Supervisors observe the safety rules. That is the big thing when employees see the manager not observing a safety rule, like our president not wearing a hard hat. Employees are encouraged to identify safety and health hazards and correct them on. One of the leading indicators that I like is I want to see how many suggestions that are brought up, how many things that are done proactively, from property damage to quality, production, safety, everything. You should have one, every week at minimum, if not 2 to 3 to 5. Employees have full access to the tools and equipment they need to do their safety. And the reason I bring that one up is that the quality of the tools that the workers have and the machines has a big impact on whether they like the job a lot of times. If they've got bad machines that are hard to work with, they're going to be very unhappy. So the answer is C. Conduct standardized culture assessments and compare the behavioral data across sites. There's a lot of statistics again, but confidence interval was specifically mentioned, and that's a range of values that represent where the mean is likely to fall based on sample data. So if you sample noise at 10 machines and the average is 87 decibels with a confidence level of plus or minus 3, so we go in there and we figure out what our standard deviation is, we can get a feel for what our confidence level. That means 95% of the time that we go out there with our machines, we should be getting 84, which is 3 minus 87, and 90, 87 plus 3 decibels. Why is it important? Because it gives you an idea if you're getting close to the limit that might be a regulatory limit by OSHA or somebody else. And it shows how reliable your data is. The more narrow it is, the more precise the estimate. If you get a wide range of data, then that's going to be a lot of uncertainty. So let's take a look at a typical question on confidence intervals. Again, we have a whole module on YouTube for statistics. Industrial hygienist measures employees to a new solvent, finds the mean airborne concentration of 120 parts per million with a 95% confidence interval of plus or minus 15 parts per million. The occupational exposure limit, that means the OSHA limit, is 125 parts per million. What's the best interpretation of these results? A, exposure is well below the limit, no further action is needed. B, exposure is clearly above the limit because 120 plus 15 is 135 parts per million. C, the exposure may be above the limit, so further evaluation of the controls are warranted. D, the confidence interval means each worker is exposed exactly to 120 parts per million. And very good for those that got C. The exposure may be above the limit, so we want to do further evaluation. And that's where you might want to bring somebody back. And of course, if you're going to be near that limit, you want to start thinking about other controls like ventilation and personal protective equipment. Okay, privacy and personal information management was a section they took from law, and they're going into it, and they put that in program management. During an incident investigation, a safety coordinator uploads a report that includes an injured worker's full name, medical diagnosis, and photos to a shared device accessible to all company employees. What is the most appropriate course of action? A, do nothing since transparency supports a strong safety culture. B, remove the personal identifier and restrict access to only those with a legitimate need. C, ask the employee if they're comfortable being included and continue as planned. Retain the full report as a public example of injury prevention. Pretty simple on this one. And it is B, remove the personal identifiers, restrict access to only those that really need to know. Economic analysis.
John, in last question, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, John, in last question, why can't we select the option C?
Because personal identifiers are not supposed to be shared by a company. Even if the employee wants it, you are not to do it though. Because the employee may come back and say, well, you put my social security number or my identification number or my home address on the thing, and now people are calling me up. Why did I get hurt? So that's why you don't do it. The employee, again, you have to have a policy of protecting the information. And you have to follow your policy. You can't violate your policy unless, you're going to do things and change it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Economic analysis is going to be also in program. It's kind of cost benefit, which we have a module on. Safety managers deciding between two types of machine guarding. Option A costs $20,000 up front with no annual maintenance, such as a pressure-sensitive mat that shuts off the minute anybody walks on it. While option B costs $8,000 up front and requires $3,000 in annual upkeep. Over 5 years, which is the most cost-effective option? Option A because it has a higher upfront cost, but longer-term savings. Option B because it's cheaper to purchase. Option A only because it looks more durable. Option B because maintenance costs are a tax write-off. And this is a math question, so everybody's getting it, so that's good. It is A. There's a higher upfront cost but longer-term savings. So if we go over 5 years, option A costs $20,000 total because we don't have annual fees or annual costs. Option B is $8,000 plus $3,000 a year times 5 years is a total cost of $23,000. So therefore, option A is the better cost. I do this all the time with material handling and robots and dealing with it. When we sit there and figure out a $50,000 robot can do this job 24/7 versus $80,000, $180,000 in salary, the robot pays for itself in less than a few months. And companies need to do this because, remember, their competition is global. Another financial analysis question. Safety professionals asked to justify a $100,000 investment in a new dust collection system. So here's our dust collection system here. The current system results in $35,000 annually in maintenance and regulatory penalties. That means the current system, which is inadequate, is very expensive to maintain. It gets clogged all the time. That's why they're going to this. So what financial technique should be used to demonstrate the long-term savings? A, cost-benefit analysis comparing the capital cost versus the annual avoided costs. B, employee satisfaction survey. C, payback period on how long the filter lasts. E, estimating OSHA citation likelihood. There's only one right answer in this one, so you should get it. It's A. Again, the cost benefit of this, if you're spending $35,000 times 3 years is $105,000, and right there, the $100,000 new dust collector is pretty good. Remember, we're talking about maintenance, clearing the jams, getting the clogs out, all these other things that you have to do because we have an old, antiquated dust collector. And these dust collectors can be $1 million in some of these places if you've got a big facility. Leadership theory, again, you're going to get a lot of questions. This is where we think the ethics is going to kind of be merged into leadership. They're going to have leadership scenario ethic questions. Safety director notices employees are completing safety checklists but not reporting hazards unless directly asked. She decides to implement a peer recognition program that rewards proactive safety actions. Some companies choose to reward with food, prizes, which is not good. What leadership theory is she applying? Transactional leadership focused on punishment of errors, autocratic leadership, top-down enforcement procedures, transformational leadership encouraging intrinsic motivation and engagement, D, situation leadership applying the same style to all levels of staff. Okay, these are if you don't know these words, just kind of study up on them because you're going to get a little bit more leadership questions than you did. And it is transformational leadership encouraging intrinsic motivation and engagement. I like to sit there and reward people doing it right. If we go out and we get a 100% audit, then we can do something right, because everybody's doing it right. I don't want to sit there and, tell people to make suggestions just for the fact that they might get lunch that day, because that's not really good. You're going to get a lot of suggestions that are nonsense because everybody wants lunch, and then you're arguing about, well, my suggestion should have got us lunch. Okay, another one, ethics. This is going back to a lot of real cases because I have a lot of injuries I investigate. Safety manager discovers an incident investigation report like this was altered by a supervisor to downplay the severity of the injury. Cedric was installing nuts. I cut it in half because of confidential. His left leg, he skinned his shin, hyperextended his hip. Okay. The supervisor claimed the change was protect the company's image. What should the safety manager do? A. Accept the changes since it avoids panic and legal exposure. B. Leave the edited version but add a personal note. C. Restore the original report and report the altercation to upper management or ethics compliance. C. Keep both versions in the file and let the legal team decide later. Okay. The answer they're looking for is C, which you got. But what I would do is I would fill out my own incident investigation report. The skin, knee, and hyperextension ended up, the femur was pulled out of the labrum of the hip. We're talking $1 million of surgery and repair. It's not just a shin and a hip strain. No, he ripped it out. So they're trying to say that we didn't have a big injury because the owner, who's involved very heavily in safety, would get very upset at the severity of this injury. So this is a real case, and in the end, the worker, was going after the general contractor in this case. So the answer was C. Restored original report to altercation to upper management or ethics and compliance. Sometimes you'll get answers that you would not quite agree with, but you have to remember, what would the committee say is the best answer in this situation? I would not, if you asked me, I would have done my own report, and I would have mentioned that, the worker did have his femur pulled out. Whether you change the supervisory report or not, that's up to you. Another one with a culture measurement. A safety team conducts an anonymous survey. That's what these surveys look like. Rated under the Likert scale. Good to bad, most satisfying, and so on. While most workers report feeling safe, which is an odd question to ask, only 15% they feel empowered to stop unsafe work, which is a serious issue. What does that suggest about the EHS culture? The safety program is working perfectly since the incidence rates are low. There's a perception of safety, but empower engagement are weak. C, more hazard signs and PPE rules are needed. D, no action is needed unless there's recordable injury. Very good. There's a perception of safety, but empowerment and engagement are weak. B, and stuff. And that's one of the things, we can ask. That's why you want to do site inspections of every worker every month, because you can talk to the workers and ask them, what do they think? What do they need for equipment? And hopefully it'll be better. Project management, the RACI was pulled out and specifically highlighted in this, the domains. Again, the RACI chart, some companies use them, some companies do not use them, but the R is the person responsible who's going to do the task, what's the person accountable, ultimately responsible. Consulted, who's going to be giving input, subject matter experts, and then inform people who are kept to date. So a typical RACI chart would have maybe a CEO, safety manager, department head, employees and team leaders, and HR. And you said, who's going to develop the safety policy? Well, the safety manager is going to do it. They're responsible. Ultimately, the CEO is going to make sure they're right. Who's going to investigate the incidents? Well, the responsible safety manager, and again, the ultimate authority is going to be the CEO. And you could do this for everything. It's not so bad, in a small company, you won't need to put this out, but in a bigger company, you have to clarify, particularly with a strong HR department and a smaller safety department, who does what, because sometimes they will overlap, and that's where you can get some issues. So this is just pre-planning to make sure everything hopefully is going to be smooth. Okay, during an audit, the EHS manager creates a RACI chart. She lists herself as accountable for overall success. The safety coordinator is responsible. That means the safety coordinator probably reports to the EHS manager for the report completion. Other stakeholders as consulted and informed. What's the benefit of this report, the RACI approach? It allows team members to act independently without supervision. B, eliminates the need for post-audit reviews. C, it clarifies ownership and communication paths, reducing bottlenecks and role confusion. D, it speeds up audits by passing documentation. Very good. It is C, clarifies ownership and communication paths. Financial risk mitigation strategies, now edited, and they want to talk about risk avoidance, and risk retention. So whenever they mention those specific words, you're going to get a question probably on that, possibly. You don't have to. Remember, when they go through this risk management section, there's probably 400 or 500 risk management questions. You're not going to maybe get the same question, even if all of us take the test. So a company chooses not to install an expensive ventilation system in a low-risk area accepts potential minor exposure-related claims if they arise. For example, we got wood dust from cutting the wood. This is in the air, the actual wood dust. This decision is based on cost and low incident probability. What strategy is being applied? Risk sharing, risk avoidance, risk retention, risk transfer. Tougher question. Tougher question. We're avoiding risk retention. It means they accept the consequence of this risk. Could there be an explosion? Sure. This is what combustible dust explosions are waiting. We have the stuff in the air. All we need is an ignition source, and if the concentration is good enough, it's going to cause an explosion, and they're going to take that risk. And I think that's unacceptable. This one, I tell them, you need to get ventilation on the router. What is this? Spend $15,000, get a ventilation system on it, and get this dust out of the air, because this is how we have dust explosions. Financial risk mitigation, again, manufacturing company was planning to introduce a new chemical cleaning process involved highly flammable solvent, like we see in this case here. After hazard and cost analysis revealed a high likelihood of explosion risk and insurance premiums doubling, management decided to use a non-chemical dry cleaning alternative instead. What is the financial strategy that this best represents? Risk retention, they accepted the cost of the explosion. Risk sharing, they split the risk with the insurer. Risk transfer, they assigned the hazard to the subcontractor. Risk avoidance, they eliminated the high process entirely. Okay, good. And again, you may not get these explanations after the word. You just might get risk retention, sharing, and transfer. It is risk avoidance. So you just have to, do well on it, study it. I find most people do well on the risk side. They study it because that's a weak area and they do well, but you just got to know at least particularly those two terms. Financial risk mitigation, risk sharing, loss prevention. Multinational construction company with subcontractors who want to build a scaffold. Both parties sign a joint agreement they'll split the cost of any incident complaints that result from shared job site responsibility. What risk mitigation strategy is being used? So we got a mass scaffold up here, very dangerous scaffold if you don't know how to put this together and what the weight loadings are. Risk transfer, risk avoidance, risk sharing, risk retention. And it is risk sharing. Both divide the financial responsibility. Usually on a big job like that, they use what they call an umbrella insurance, where everybody's in it and they pay. And then generally the general contractor will sign a hold harmless, and you can't sue them, and you'll pay the costs of anything that's your fault. So, warehouse installs an advanced sprinkler system, requires its freight carriers to carry its own liability insurance for hazardous material. Here's two questions in one. Which two financial risk strategies are being used? Risk avoidance and risk retention, risk transfer and loss prevention, risk sharing and incident reporting, risk assessment and budgeting. And it is C. What we have here is our sprinkler system right here, and we've blocked it. You will get a question on one of the tests. How far does a sprinkler have to be from the top of the object? That's a number, we see that come up like every fifth question. But you have to know that. 18 or 36 inches. Okay. There are OSHA codes that say 36, so 18 is what most people use in industry. But it was risk transfer, loss prevention is B. Okay, safety manager at a chemical plant implements weekly audits and digital dashboards that track flammable storage compliance, near-miss reports, and air monitoring data. Over time, it identifies trends and prevents incidents before they occur. Which risk management function is being performed? Risk avoidance, the hazard is being eliminated. Risk retention, they're accepting the current exposure. C, risk monitoring and continuously tracking known risks. D, risk transfers, responsibilities are being outsourced. Like this company here, they monitor for emissions every, month, the total quantities released and everything. So it is risk monitoring, continually tracking down known risks. Emergency management. Cybersecurity is going to be questions. So we figure 1, 2, maybe 3 questions. A little bit different from, personal identifiable information, which is also computer related, but this is different. Attackers gaining access to EHS system and alerts safety inspection data falsely show it passed the results at a high hazard facility. Which action best supports the cybersecurity risk mitigation? We want to take action. Use multi-factor authentication and actively logging for all critical systems. Restrict access to safety systems using role-based permissions. Require safety professionals assign a physical checklist after each task. D. Use generic logins for faster access in emergency situations. You got answers all over the board on this one. Well, just think about your phone. That's your best answer here. You're going to have multi-factor authentication and actively logging. Okay. So,
But John, why not the option C, as like if we are having the physical checklist with us,
because
that will be also helpful.
Remember, this is an example of 2 good answers, but you want to try to mitigate somebody getting in, and the checklist doesn't do anything to prevent getting in. The 2-factor authentication. So when I get on my phone, it's like every time I think I have anything with financial or serious data sites I got to go to, it resends a text message and I have to enter the code. That's 2-factor authentication. That has been proven to be very good. Now it's evolving that it'll check your facial recognition or fingerprint also, because they're trying to put layers in for hackers who are not part of your system and stuff. So, and that's why you're going to get cybersecurity questions. They're looking at multi-factor, and it's done. We've seen less hacks from people who have to do it from bank accounts to other sites with involving particularly money. Workplace violence specifically going to get questions. We saw come in the trial questions a couple years ago, and then it'd been 1, 2, 3 questions usually. But risk assessment, manager identifies working overnight in remote locations have no duress alarm, locked access points, or training on violent intruder responses. What's the best control to implement first? A. Install duress alarms, provide situation awareness training. B. Ask employees to stay alert, report anything unusual. C. Assign workers as a security lead. D. Allow workers to carry personal firearms. Well, that's not the answer. But it is put duress alarms. You see these in stores and a lot of locations that they can just hit a button and immediately call the emergency services and stuff. Good. A lot of stuff on emergency response program components. And again, this is going to be, a question. We did the module on the roles of incident command. People, who have not studied that issue don't realize that they're going to ask you who are the 4 divisions that report to the incident commander, who are the 3 people that report to the incident commander. But this one's going to go over a component called tabletop drills for hazardous chemical spill. It becomes clear that employees don't know who's responsible for activating the evacuation alarm or who to report to. What key component was likely missing or unclear? A list of emergency PPE inventory. B, assignment of roles and responsibility within the incident command structure. C, building insurance policy documentation. D, vendor contact list for replacement chemicals. And it is B, assignment of roles and responsibility. I've been involved in several of them, from tornadoes to terrorism to floods. The boss is gone. Who makes the decision? Who is going to be the person making the decision to evacuate? We've had 8 people drown because the person did not make a decision. In another case with a terrorism one, the boss was gone. They were waiting for permission to evacuate, which is nonsense. Someone's got to be put in training. You got to have a chain of command, and somebody has to know the roles and make those tough decisions. So, It's over and over, and that's why you're going to see a lot of questions on this. I mean, lot meaning maybe up to 5 questions. Business continuity, this is always important. It's not really safety, but it is an area that affects it, and you are going to be a person that's going to be good at planning, so they'll probably have you involved. Flood damage, lowers level of the company is damaged, knocking out servers and access to digital safety record. Despite this, operation resumed within 24 hours from a backup location with full access data. What continuity element was most effective? Having weather alerts via email, having cloud-based backup and pre-identified alternative work sites, C, monthly safety committee meetings, D, shutting down all operations until complete cleanup is done. Again, cloud-based backup and pre-identified alternate work sites. It's important, and particularly if a company gets data hacked, they have some backup that is not hacked, and they can restore things like payroll and client lists and all your project and all your areas. But identified work sites, one of the things we always ask, if this place has a tornado, flood, whatever, fire, are we going to go where? Where do we go? Do we have an alternative location? And if they don't plan for this, then you find out the hard way that your company doesn't know what to do and is going to be scrambling, and that can be eliminated with this pre-planning. Again, safety, people are very good at pre-planning. That's why you should be involved in it. I was involved in it all the time, working out where our secondary location is and having that available. Environmental management, again, not going to go away, but it's going to get away from the EPA specific rules. So they're going to add environmental, social, and governance, ESG, which is big, because I'm working with Microsoft and other big clients, Meta and everyone else. This is a big deal to them. This is not like a little deal. Means they look at this issue and they make decisions on this issue. A manufacturing facility, let's say Meta, reviewing suppliers as part of its ESG initiatives. One vendor uses solar energy and water recycling in its process, while another does not report any sustainability practices. What ESG aligned decision supports the company's environmental responsibility? A, select the cheapest vendor to reduce immediate costs. B, choose a vendor with the fastest delivery times. C, prioritize the vendor using solar and recycling processes. D, ask both vendors for loyalty discounts. People are stunned. When I deal with like the smaller businesses, they can't believe that these big companies would choose the vendor with solar, even though they're less. One of the things that Microsoft did in Wisconsin, if your injury rates are above the average, you can't even bid. You can't even bid. And you're talking, this is $11-14 billion job, and you can't even bid, and it's right next door because your incident rate was too high. Amazon told one of the clients I know, your injury rates is 1.02. You're not on the jobs anymore. We're not going to let you bid on any more Amazon jobs. That's 1/3 of their revenue going to disappear. And now it's important to the president. Safety and health is important, because you can't bid. During a contractor audit, a safety manager discovers one of the subcontractors offering OSHA 30 cards for $300 without training, advertising as a fast-track option. The site safety team is pressured by upper management to look the other way because the contractor delivers the project quickly, i.e. getting people trained in 30 hours. What ESG principle is directly at risk? A, environmental emission tracking. B, social inclusion and hiring practice. C, governance, ethical compliance, and regulatory integrity. D, emergency response and recovery planning. And it is C. Here's the press conference this last week. They put people falsifying the OSHA 30 cards for $300, 1 year in jail. Wow. So, and this happened at a site I know. So, the answer is C, governance. Emphasizing on aging infrastructure and climate change. That's a brand new category, and we haven't got too many questions on it. More for aging infrastructure. I'm sure there's going to be climate change ones, and as we get it, we'll take a look at it. Wastewater treatment plant built in the 1970s, freakers, valve failures, and pipe leaks. This is what we're seeing right down. Everything is rusted. All the pipes are rusted. Everything is corroded for components. During the environmental audit, the inspectors noted corrosion in buried steel lines right here. What's the best long-term EHS strategy to manage this risk? A, increase maintenance frequency. but avoid capital upgrades. B, paint over the corroded lines to prevent further rust. C, develop a phased replacement plan and risk prioritization upgrade schedule. D, rely on visual inspections every 6 months. And everybody got it right. Develop a phased replacement plan, which is going to take 3 years. Figure out which ones you got, because this place had 23 places they needed to fix, and someone's got to prioritize the list and work on this issue. Again, facility locally, this is your climate change question, located in a coastal area experiences more frequent flooding due to rising sea levels and extreme weather. Which action best reflects climate adaptation as part of an environmental management strategy? A, train employees to evacuate faster during storms. B, elevate the electrical system and relocate critical equipment above flood zones. C, accept insurance payouts as an ongoing cost of business. D, close the facility temporarily during the rainy season. And you've got that right. It is B, elevate the electrical system. And that's what they're going to do here. They got all the electrical equipment. They're going to raise the lines so that they can't get in a flood zone. So they don't want to do it. And not that this thing is going to flood 30 feet, but they want it higher. So number 35, again, sustainability in the supply chain. Another environmental management question, but more business operation. Company wants to reduce its carbon footprint from inbound shipments. Which strategy best demonstrates supply chain sustainability? Reduce the number of suppliers evaluations conducted. B, ship to local vendors and consolidate shipments to reduce transportation emission. C, require all suppliers to send hard copy invoices for accountability. D, increase inventory to reduce order frequency. And that's it. We got our local vendors here. We're doing a safety day. We celebrate safety. So, oops, what's going on here? I don't know why that come up. Number 36. Epidemiology, that means knowledge of all the diseases and infectious diseases. Going to be in an area. Physics and chemistry didn't change, just got moved to a different location. We have a module that we cover blasting and nanoparticles and toxology and layer safety, so that's one of the YouTube videos. But use of sampling monitoring tubes, they're going to ask a little bit more about the sampling method. So here we're sampling the welding fume in the area. The white little dot that's by his breathing zone is collecting the welding fume. Okay. In this case, it was under, which is good. Could involve other things in sampling, such as direct reading instruments. So a safety technician is using a 4-gas meter to assess confined space air. The monitor detects oxygen at 19.2, hydrogen sulfide at 5 parts per million, no flammable gases. What should be the technician's next step? Proceed with entry, since oxygen is present. Calibrate the monitor again to verify accuracy. Deny entry and begin ventilation as oxygen below the safe minimum level. D, report results after a full shift sampling period. And it is due. It should read 20.9. If I'm reading 19.2, that meter should be going off because the limit by OSHA is 19.5. So the answer is deny entry, begin ventilation. I sometimes ventilate spaces out for hours. We can get industrial blowers. If there's an area we don't have to go in right away, we might blow it out for 2 days to get rid of anything that might be residual on the bottom of the floor. And then continuous improvement models introduced. I call this the Deming's Plan, Do, Check, Act. That's what I call continuous improvement, because you'll get Deming questions, but this is the common cycle that's been around for continuous improvements. So your company notices an increase of hand injuries over the last quarter. As a safety professional using the continuous improvement model, what should be your first step? A, review injury records, identify root causes before planning an intervention. B, conduct refresher training for all employees immediately. C, replace all hand tools across the site. D, issue a company-wide safety memo reminding workers to wear gloves. Okay. And these are impact reasons. This is a real case. They had 70 injuries, 35 were impact on the hands. We went to these 2 gloves. These were Armor guys from Emergent Safety, and then this other one from Hex Armor, or Superior Glove. And they work out really well. These are examples of good gloves. So the answer is review injury reports, identify root causes before planning. They always want you to make an assessment. Even if the assessment is 5 seconds, That's the process. You're going to assess that the person's lifting too much. You're still doing the assessment. So always they make an assessment before we do anything. The adult learning principles, now called VARC, which is a big change because it used to be the visual, auditory, and kinesthetics. Now they added reading and writing, which is the fourth one of VARC. Again, during confined space training, a participant asked to perform the entry steps instead of just reading them. This learner prefers which style of VARC? Kinesthetics, visual, auditory, reading, and writing. He wants to do the hands-on instead of the other. And it is A. Kinesthetics is hands-on. A lot of people. So what we're doing over here is they're showing people hands-on how to measure the confined space with a meter. You can have a pump on the meter and it can suck in the gases, and this is a lot better than showing people in a classroom on a slide. You know, anytime you can get out there and show hands-on how to do this means it'll be pretty good. The AI method for training, another new topic. EHS Manager compares traditional classroom training with AI-based microlearning modules. Microlearning is kind of what we do on our daily quizzes. You know, 3 questions, that's microlearning. Workers using the AI module show higher retention than on the follow-up quizzes. What makes the AI-based training more effective in this context? AI modules push reminders, assess weak areas automatically. AI training removes the need for any EHS oversight. Workers ignore AI but learn from trial and error. AI lessons always use complicated terminology. And the answer is A. AI modules push reminders, assess weak areas automatically. Ideally, we would have daily quizzes you could take, and then it would tell you, oh, by the way, on domain 7, you are scoring at 40%, and that's pretty low. Training is one of the toughest areas on the CSP historically. If you think these are the 7 domains, you will typically score the lowest in training. This weekend, I plan to upload the other CIT modules for training, just because if you think you're weak in that area, you can go through I think it's 7 modules on CIT and just brush up on it, because they're going to ask a lot of questions. And remember, this is going to be probably 15 to 20 questions, and you got to be able to, you know, see the nuances of it. Now they got AI added into it. Another one, AI training focus on effective. An organization relies on AI-driven platforms for all safety training. That means computer-based training, as I call it. While test scores are high, near-miss incident reveals workers misunderstood how to respond to a rare high-stress emergency. What's the likely limitation of relying solely on AI for training? AI may lack the human judgment needed to simulate unpredictable real-world conditions. B, AI platforms always teach incorrect procedures. AI leads to lower test scores overall. AI platforms cannot track user data. And it is A. And this is a good example. When you're in this building and the roof is on fire, people didn't know what to do. People who are on the lower floors went up to this floor to get their computer, their purse, their coat, everything, because this is the middle of winter. That's not what we do in a fire, you know, but this is an issue that goes, you know, people go in there, and that's what you don't want. You don't want people coming to the fire because of the other issues and stuff. So, not good. AI, again, the answer is A. AI may lack human judgment. Any questions? Again, we have 40 topics. You can, for what I recommend a lot of you, you know, if this was tough, you can screen capture the 40 questions and then study them as an independent guide. But it is tough. I think when we lost the 5 easy ethics questions, you know, some of these, you know, most people here did probably 70-80%. It'll be on the video hopefully today. That's my goal today, is to put it on the video. And but again, you want to be able to, you know, be able to get these areas, study them, get these questions right, and then you'll be confident. Again, I see everybody that's usually in the study group will be able to do these questions. These are not like completely new thoughts, but it's topics. And once you say, okay, we need to get some more AI questions on training, you know, you'll work on it. But I think a lot of you are very good on it. You know, I think you'll continue to be good. We'll have a lot of people. We had 32 people pass last month. We've already had 10 people pass in the first 4 days this month. So it's working. Just keep on studying, and like I said, we're all trying to get everybody in there. I think the math probably dropped a question or two, because we got rid of algebra and geometry. So I figure it's probably 1 or 2 questions less, because they didn't gain anything. They didn't add a new math area. They've always had, return on investment. They always had volume of cylinder. But taking out the geometry and the algebra, which is rarely used other than some other issues go through. But thank you very much for coming. We'll talk to you later.
So John,
Yes, sir.
John, what you reckon that means the maths question will be very limited.
No, you'll
As
probably,
you were saying that there will.
I did the YouTube video where I think, used to be average person got 10, give or take 3 questions on math. I mean, I've had people get up to 15 math questions, but some people have had a low of 6. So I think you'll get probably 1 less math question on average. So it'll probably be 9, give or take 3 or 4.
Okay.
But no geometry, no algebra, they promised. So.
Okay.
So they didn't add anything.
Okay. Thank you so much. And in the upcoming 2 months, are you going to plan domain 1 or domain 2 video separately?
I've already done that.
First.
They're already on the YouTubes and stuff. The next project will be the ASP changes, which is going to take effect a couple months from now.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for coming.